Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of my Project Zomboid Conquering Louisville series, where I spawn into a post-apocalyptic Louisville 10 years after the Knox event and survive long enough to become the king of the wasteland. If you haven't watched episode 1 and don't want to feel left behind, I've put all the episodes of this series into a nifty little playlist so you can watch them all in one place. With all that being said, I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode and hopefully the series. I woke up early with a newfound vigor, ready to seize the day ahead of me. Today would be the day where I take my first step towards the goal of becoming self-sufficient and find a generator. However, a generator is useless without the proper know-how, so I scouted out a large library in the dead center of Louisville, which I felt gave me the best chance of success. The plan was simple: park the van in front of the library, grab the magazine, and bounce without wasting too much time. Quick and easy, 15-minute adventure. Or so I thought. Upon arriving at the library, I was caught off guard by the sheer amount of shamblers in the streets. There was no way I could fight them all, so I had to think on my feet. After quickly parking and exiting the van, I began shouting into the void in the hopes of attracting all the nearby zombies. I thought that if I could lure them all out of the library, I could then lead them down the street and eventually lose them. I even fired off a warning shot in the hopes that every zombie was following me. So I hoarded up what was probably over 100 zombies, and they followed me away from the library like sheep being led by their shepherd. After rounding the back corner of the library, the coast appeared clear. I thought I would be free to run in, grab the magazine, and get out, just as my plan intended. I had an opening to hop into the library for the very first time. At this point, my heart was racing, and I only had time to loot just a few books before all hell started breaking loose. The zombies down the street that I led away from before must have heard the sound of my heart beating, because they began flooding through the windows and overwhelming me. I tried to fight them off while remaining inside the library, but eventually I realized my efforts were futile. Exhausted and becoming increasingly panicked, I left the library and attempted to lead them away yet again, choosing this time not to shout or fire any warning shots. I needed to bring this horde through a different way than I did before. After completing the loop back to the library, I took care of a few stragglers that were waiting for me, and realizing that a handful of zombies had broken off from the horde and followed me in, I decided to stand my ground. But then, this happened. I suffered a laceration on my forearm, which required my immediate attention, and feeling naked and afraid from losing my hat during that scuffle, I couldn't risk being in this library much longer, so I engaged in probably the most intense game of cat and mouse I've ever experienced in Project Zomboid so far, desperately searching each bookshelf looking for that fateful generator magazine. Eventually, I found it. But I wasn't fast enough in grabbing it, and nearly avoided another confrontation with the zombie. So I played another round of Ring Around the Rosie, hoping I could create enough space between me and the hungry horde of zombies just wanting to take another bite out of me. And there it is, we've secured the bag. So we exit the library from the same window of which we came, frantically run towards the van, and we live to fight another day. I risked life and limb for this magazine, and reading it for the first time truly felt like an accomplishment. We could cross step 1 off of our list. However, this was merely just a baby step. We still needed to find an actual generator, but I knew just where to look. Following the craziness of the previous day, this day was all about rest and recovery. Most of the day was spent just tending to my wounds, reading a couple skill books, and dealing with a handful of zombies that visited my base.
Know your fucking place, trash.
Maybe if I keep the curtains closed, the zombies won't believe that anybody's home. The following day was spent doing about as much the same as we did before. Overnight, our injuries had only gotten worse.
Infected.
We had to put off the looting run yet another day. After catching a zombie trespassing in my backyard, I was determined to not let this happen again. So I spent the rest of the day training carpentry in order to get the required level to build walls and finish walling off my backyard. After getting my carpentry level up, I did my best Donald Trump impression by promising to build the wall and then never finishing it.
We're gonna build the wall, we have no choice.
Instead of going out in a snowstorm and while I was still injured, I decided to end the day with a little bit of reading. Day 9 would end up arguably being one of the most important days of this playthrough. If you've ever gone to Louisville in this game, then you're well aware of this military checkpoint. Not only are there loads of guns and ammo in this place, but there's also a guaranteed generator spawn right here, as well as a handful of others up and down this long street where there's abandoned campsites. This scene tells a story of desperation in an event where all hope has been lost. But for us, it tells a story of hope and opportunity to maybe, just maybe, build something out of this cold and desolate world. Once we find a generator, we can finally emerge from the darkness and start sustaining ourselves for the long term. Complement that with a stockpile of weapons and ammo, and we can beat back the hordes of the undead and make sure they never threaten us again. Zomboids were littered in the streets, turning this otherwise easy drive into something more along the lines of going through an obstacle course. We were also struggling to maintain a steady speed through the snow and the grass, making this trek much more dangerous. Eventually, we made it to the long row of campsites, our first major landmark, knowing that the military checkpoint was just a few minutes away. After crashing into a cardboard box that was maybe filled with cinder blocks or something, we made it to the chain link fence that marks the entrance to the military camp. And unlike the library from days before, we were ready for a fight this time. At this point, I was getting exhausted, and as much as I wanted to kill every last zombie in my sight, I knew it was more useful to me if I could just lose them somewhere in this camp. So that's exactly what I did. That little maneuver was worth it, because other than a handful of zombies, I was able to loot relatively stress-free for the rest of my time here. I spent the next 5 hours of game time looting this entire camp dry of all of its weapons and ammunition. So instead of showing you the boring process of walking from tent to tent, why not just show all of the loot that I got? Thankfully, I remembered to pick up the generator before heading back to base. And as a little cherry on top, I found this sweet green military poncho that I'm wearing now. And just like that, we were ready to make the return trip home and unpack all of our precious loot. We now have secured 2 of the 3 necessary components for using a generator. We got the magazine, and we have the actual generator. Now all that's left is to get some gas, but pretty soon the sun will be setting. And since we're still pretty far from base, we're gonna save that goal for tomorrow.